Oregon photographs well. Rain-polished streets, fur that makes its own ceiling, coastlines that pretend to be gentle, a desert so flat the sky forgets you. But pretty is a filter, and filters lie. Out here, the rain has hands. It learns your roof, your name, your weak nail. Fog stacks in the trees until the world is all hallway and no rooms. The timber creaks back like it kept your footsteps in a drawer. Old houses settle in sentences. Barns remember who left last. In mill towns, the green chain still talks when no one's on shift. In the gorge, wind finds the exact word to open a door you swore was latched. Locals will give you rules the way grandfathers hand down pocket knives. Don't follow shoe prints that climb uphill out of the river. Don't watch a lighthouse beam when it sweeps the trees instead of the water. Don't answer your scanner if it calls you by your full name before you've keyed the mic. Don't whistle in a mill where sawdust still floats in your pictures. Don't stand at the center of a dry lake when the wind stops. And above everything, do not teach the place your keys. Not your laugh, not your latch, not your please. We deal in testimonies here, not legends buffed for brochures, confessions with splinters. You'll hear a flagger working nights in the gorge as wet prints climb the guardrail toward him, a coast caretaker logging a phantom light that sweeps land, a courier under Portland's freight lines, hearing tomorrow's yard calls in his dead radio. Two explorers in a timber mill, where noon arrives at the wrong hour. A wildlife tech on the high flats, learning the middle of nowhere has doors. Listen for the moment routine becomes echo. The second knock you didn't teach. The breath on the inside of the window. The latch that moves a half inch to let you know it understands. If you're watching in a warm room, dim it. Let the house say what it's been saving. If you're on headphones and you hear one more breath than the room should hold, don't name it. Because Oregon learns fast. The coast repeats you in fog. The hills file your footsteps under moss. The desert keeps your shadow for practice. The rivers copy your voice and send it back on the wrong channel. Tonight, we open just enough to look through. I'm going to tell you 5 true, disturbing Oregon horror stories, exactly as they were lived and never fully escaped. Night flagging is a simple job until it starts teaching. You hold a paddle at the edge of someone else's disaster and convince traffic to believe you. Rain softens nerves, wind edits patience. Headlights lie about distance and make every rock a decision. The slide hit right after dusk. The Zolt, mud, limbs, a tire from a life I'll never know. 2 lanes buried under the cliff's short temper. DOT said heavy iron at first light. Until then, it was me at the east barricade, misty on the west, and a river that knows how to argue. I staged the combs tight and true, laid the sawhorse, set the flood lamps just off aim so they'd punch the rain without blinding the next mistake. The amber on my truck chewed water into glitter. My vest stuck to my neck, like a reminder to be visible, to be small, to be a hinge the night had to pass through. Misty checked in every 10 minutes. West green, she'd say, a smile I could hear. East holding, I'd answer, pretending the road had manners. Between us lay 150 yards of dark rock and explanation. A freight bawled from the Washington side. Sound slid the gorge wall and came back thinner, like the wind had scraped the vowels off. First hour, routine. Locals who know back roads like religion. semis with old stories in their brakes, a Subaru with kayaks, and a couple fighting softly, because this much rain changes plans. I flipped slow to stop and back as needed, soaked through from the elbows down, counting by tail lights and apologies. The prints showed up in the second hour. Wet shoe prints, uphill of the guardrail where even deer pick their steps. No feeder trail, no slide scuff, just a single file, each heel and toe neat as a diagram, walking down the moss crown toward me. Toward me. I've worked floods, black ice, frozen fog that eats light. Water writes stories, splash stars, slur trails, wash fans. This wasn't that. These had tread, edges, decision. 4 prints at first. By the time I blinked against the rain, 7. By the time I took a breath that remembered warmth, 10. I swept the shoulder with my lamp beam. No partner line, no animal scatter. The ditch carried rain clean and righteous as a sermon, racing west. Something tapped the guardrail at my elbow. Not ping from a falling pebble. 3 taps in the same wet spot. Measured. Patient. Between taps, I felt a hum through the metal, like a throat clearing. I flipped my paddle to stop for no one and stepped up to the guardrail, because I always do the wrong brave thing first. The prince climbed over without touching the top. No smear, no slide, just absence where weight should have stumbled. Then, heel, toe on my lane side, wet on dry in the floodlight's polite cone. West green, Misty chimed. I swallowed, keyed up. East holding, I said, and my voice tried to shake, and then remembered it had a job. Cars came. I waved them slow, dripped on their open windows, answered questions the sign already had. A teen with music too loud mouthed an apology I believed for no reason. When the last taillights braided off into rain, the prince had taken 3 more steps. Closer. I touched the inside latch of my truck to feel the half-inch of give. I tell my hand to memorize hardware when the night gets personal. Say again your status? I asked Misty, more to hear a person than for the answer. She gave me West Green, and then, very softly, said a sentence like she was remembering where she'd learned it. Don't step where the water steps first. Static swallowed the last word and handed it back clean. I stared at the ditch line, the shoulder seam, the minor gutters the rain had written. Water always steps first, that's the point. The prince knew it too. They paused at the edge of a bright, wet patch, then appeared across it like a person who doesn't believe in puddles. I made my best joke to the wind. Okay, you win. The wind asked for a better joke. A new print appeared on my boot toe. Not on pavement, on me. Cold, like pressure, not wet. Heel on the rubber cap, weight without weight. Then another at my shin, the exact distance a human stride would take if a person mistook me for floor. It paused at my knee like a stranger on a stair they remember from childhood. Copy? Misty asked, far and thin. My mouth opened and was a fish for a second. I didn't want to tell the river my fear in words the night could learn. I stepped sideways onto the little scree tongue the slide had spit into the lane, rock first, dry first. The cold stepped off me. 2 wet ovals backed away on asphalt that hadn't had time to shine yet. Traffic thinned further. The world shrank to my flood cone, Misty's cone, and what moved between. A trooper rolled slow, nodded, let competence be its own conversation. I did not mention footprints. Rookie talk breaks old men. The prince crossed the lane as if obeying a crosswalk nobody painted. They stopped 12 feet out. No away track, just arrival, held like a breath. I'm not religious, but there are prayers that don't need gods. Mine goes like this: hands, latch, rock.
Hands, work visible. Latch, remember the half-inch. Rock, pick a world that isn't made of water. So I did. I worked. I remembered. I stood on the debris tongue where rain only narrated and did not decide. Another freight called, slower, heavier. Counting cars became a leash I could trust. I gave each car a word I wanted back in the daylight. Sleep, coffee, Tuesday, fence, quiet, all the boring I love. When the prince returned, they didn't bother with the uphill courtesy. They rose from a low seam where a sheet of water clung to the lane stripe, stepped up in a neat ladder, and paused at my truck door. They pressed one clean oval at latch height, no handprint.
Just the absence of dry in the shape wet prefers. The oval dried inward from the edges, like savor, like teeth learning patience. Status, I said to the radio because I needed a sentence that knew me. West Green, Misty said again, then quieter. They used my name. Who? I asked. The water, she said, and something in it that knows how a human breath rests between syllables. I looked at the ditch and kept my breath on a different rhythm on purpose. The rain found a harder gear. Flood halos turned every droplet into a universe. The slope released a single lazy cobble. It tapped the rail and spun away like a choice reconsidered. I blinked, and in that blink, 2 fresh prints stacked onto my left boot again, heel to toe up the shin. The cold learned me like a root. I slid to rock. They slid off. Good, Misty said on air like she'd been standing beside me. We'll swap at half. We didn't swap. At 0300, the county closed both approaches. It was us, the flood lamps, and whatever practiced walking where water taught. 3 times in the small hours, the prince visited the sawhorse like a neighbor checking if we needed flour. They learned not to smear the yellow tape. They practiced care. That part made me more afraid than the cold. Consideration means attention. Attention means a future. Fake dawn, clouds pretending to forgive. The backhoe arrived bright and unapologetic. The operator was 60 if he was a day, cheerful, humming a hymn that tolerates swearing. He teased boulders free like baby teeth. "Any fun?" he asked without looking up. "Just weather," I said. He noticed the dried oval at my door, glanced at my boots, and found better topics. We reopened one lane, truck to truck. Misty idled up, window down, face washed out to the color of cheap coffee. Her eyes did not lift from my boots. "You got stepped on," she said, factual, bored. "So did you," I said. She shrugged without moving. "Bridge at mile 18, Prince on the wet side. You know who told you that rule?" I asked. She let her gaze rest on the river like a dog on a warm patch. "I did," she said. "Just not from here." Her hand tapped her own throat once, like an embarrassed metronome. I slept day shift in a rental that keeps the streetlight like a pet fish. Hot water scalded the easy places. The bone cold kept its lease. I dreamt trains with moss on them, rails that climbed like ivy, and a doorstep with ankle-high knocking. At dusk, that's what I got. 3 taps near the threshold, too low for hands, too polite to be a prank. I set my palm on the latch and felt the metal ask a question I didn't want to answer. Stillness is an answer. I gave it that. The taps chose to be history. A week later, I drew gorge nights again. Different mile marker, same rain schooling. The rule rode with me on an index card I didn't write. Don't step where the water steps first. I watched the ditch lines like they were snakes that owned the deed. I set cones on dry islands, even when it made the long walk longer. Misty texted me from her drier district. "Rock first." I sent back, "Always." People asked about the slide, not the road. People ask about events, not the place that holds them. I started telling them to watch the rock, to let water have first say, but not last word. A logger with eyes like tired kindness told me the river keeps the names of those who teach it. I believed him, because the Columbia is a clerk with perfect penmanship. Around midnight, a Subaru drifted past too slow, windows fogged on the inside. I waved, "Stop." The driver rolled down and said, without moving his eyes, "We saw footprints up around Wyeth, above the lane. You got a hiker out?" "Maybe," I said. His passenger whispered, "They were walking the way my grandma used to when she made sure not to wake us." A specific fear, that. I told them to go on and be gentle with their brakes. Rain got intimate after that, the kind that sits on your hat brim and thinks about you. I paced my piece of lane. I did laps along rock and left the water to walk to me if it wanted me. It wanted me infrequently, like a caller who knows better than to show their need all at once. Once more, the print found my door latch, pressed there, neat, oval. I let it dry, slow, shrinking inward, the way a decision gets small when you treat it right. I thought about letting it in, just to see what a conversation would sound like between water and metal, and the part of me that belongs to both. I didn't. Some curiosities buy you for keeps. Shift break. I brewed coffee in the truck like I was making a promise to heat. Steam twined with rain in a marriage the law allows. In the mirror, my vest glowed like a dangerous flower. In the glass beyond my shoulder, a single wet heel appeared on the top of the guardrail, balanced there, not slipping. A toe joined it. They stood like a person about to choose a side. I turned the mirror with 2 fingers, so I wouldn't have to say I watched something that wasn't there. I drank coffee that tasted like trusting a small lie. It helped. Morning punched through late, the way it does when the sky and the river are still negotiating. The heavy iron finished its sentences with the slide. Traffic reclaimed the right to be impatient. Misty called to say her new beat had dust in it big as almonds. I said I envied her problems. She said, "Don't." We meant the opposite of everything we said. What I know now is a small list, but it fits in pockets. Water keeps minutes long enough to make them rules. Metal hums when it learns a rhythm it wants to own. Rock forgives you once and writes it down. Never stand where you cannot tell if your footprint is yours. If you work nights in the gorge and you meet prints climbing out of nowhere toward you, don't argue their splashes. Splashes don't have heels. Don't argue gravity forgot its job. Gravity is the only thing out here that never sleeps. Don't stand where the ditch has already said, "Mine." Find rock. Find dry. Let wet show you its manners at your feet, not through your bones. Because the road learns fast. Because the river keeps what you teach it. Because the first yes you give to a knock at ankle height is never the last yes it asks for. I'm still here. That's the whole brag. I pick rock first. I let water step where it wants, and I don't follow. And when the guardrail taps like a neighbor with a question, I answer with stillness. Sometimes stillness is the only sentence the place will respect. Caretaker sounds official until you're the one holding the keys. Off-season on the Central Coast, I kept the old lighthouse quarters ready for guests who wouldn't arrive. Sheets starched, windows salted, weather logged so the house would feel noticed. The sea spoke the old language, push,
pull, sigh. Fog took the cliffs and gave them back when it felt generous. My room sat at the back gable, parlor, kitchen, hall. The east stair up to the light, locked, fenced, closed to politely curious winds. Officially, the lens is automated, no keeper needed. That's the sentence brochures use. Night 1, a beam swept from inland. Not the tower, she slept in cloud. This thing cut across the spruce like a blade held the wrong way, skating the parlor wall, the stair landing, the east wing door. It left the ocean dark and studied the rooms. One horn once out past the headland, then rain like beads on wire. I logged it. 0114, inland sweep. Interior shadows moved toward sea. I underlined inland. The docent's joke reads like a rule. If the beam sweeps land, shut the interior doors. Don't watch the second pass. I copied it on an index card and wedged it in the kitchen molding. Night 2, 0114, land beam again. I shut the parlor door. I did not watch the second pass. The banister cooled under my palm like approval. Night 3, same sweep. When it crossed the hall, the portrait of the second keeper and his wife widened its eyes a fraction. I turned the frame to face the wall and apologized to their backs. I keep a guest register even when rooms are empty. This winter, guests checked in anyway. Neat entries. Mr. and Mrs. P... 2 nights. C. Little, single. Lantern, room unknown. Pencil resting where no hand from my side could have put it. I erased slowly. The paper warmed like skin embarrassed. By nights 4 and 5, doors learned a half-inch and forgot it. The east wing latch tested forward, back, practicing. I set my fingers there and told the metal number. Metal understands tone. Fog kept the horn to itself. At 114, sweep. I shut doors and let the house keep its joke. Night 6, both parlors set meat for no one. The land beam crawled along floorboards, breathed dust from winter-clean corners, rested its edge on the east knob until the brass glowed like a coin in someone else's pocket. I didn't open. From the east wing came measured steps down the empty hall, balanced, polite, leaning on the banister I'd polished for no one. Top stair popped. Beam fell away. Rain remembered its job. Morning, a child's small handprint on the outside of the kitchen window, dry on wet glass, placed like I helped. I wiped it with the cloth I use for brass and said thank you to no one.
Day 7. A tour in bright jackets insisted the trail was open. "Does the light still work?" a man asked. "The automation performs what is asked," I said. "So, no," he smiled. I gave him a brochure that had survived 3 directors. Night 7. Sweep again. Even with doors shut, a ribbon of light found under the threshold and crossed my boots without registering me. It took the shape of my laces and forgot to put the shape back. I counted calm aloud. 1, 2, 3. The ribbon laid its nose under the door like a dog, reminding me I have thumbs. In the kitchen, tea I wouldn't drink. The register lay open again. Lightkeeper, 1 night, familiar. Handwriting matched mine too closely. Night 8, poor sleep and short. I dreamed corridors my house doesn't have. Woke to rain and a scent of salt, plus something burned that hadn't been. The east door stood slightly ajar, just enough to see nothing. I shut it and refused to say a word the house could repeat. Old ledgers of real keepers say the quiet parts. 1908. Inland illumination observed. Shutters closed. No second look. 1931. Children heard guest bell. Foghorn silent. 1958.
"Do not watch the second pass." I put the book away before paper started stacking. Night 9. I fell in love with cowardice that keeps you living. I locked every interior door I could, left the east wing merely latched, a test I didn't want to grade. Swell pounded the headland. Spray climbed the grass like the sea had appointments inland. 0114, land beam. It lingered at the east knob. "Don't," I told the light. Words sometimes complete a circuit. The knob turned a half-inch, back a half, practicing my small lift. I held the panel over the latch and breathed out of rhythm on purpose. Fear likes patterns. I wouldn't teach one. The being dimmed, returned, dimmed like breath counting me. I spoke the joke like prayer. If the beam sweeps land, shut the interior doors. Don't watch the second pass. And I added a rule of my own. Don't let a room learn your yes. The beam withdrew. The east wing footsteps did not. Slow down the hall. Pause at the landing window to confirm the ocean still remembered its part. Pop overhead. The parlor door cooled under my palm. Understanding doesn't change weather. Night 10 tried a new trick. A lamp glowed in the east wing behind a keyhole. No cord, no power. Shade lit with saved daylight. The beam didn't sweep. The lamp did, across the hall, under my door. Light climbed my shin and paused at my knee where a hand might ask permission. I kept my breathing wrong and said the last rule I own. If you didn't light it, you don't open for it. The glow dimmed, like it would try again on a better student. Morning. Parlor ceiling held a faint, damp foot, child small, right above the settee where I sleep when nerves pick the bed. I wiped it with vinegar like a keeper's wife might and promised the room we were done teaching each other this lesson. Day 11. The ranger stopped by with a grin and cormorant gossip. He asked if the quarters stayed dry. I said yes. He said kids had been whistling after hours. I told him whistling in the wrong building is a marriage proposal to nothing good. He laughed the way you laugh when truth is impolite. That night, the inland sweep came early, 1:02. Frames shivered. It licked the braided dining bell. The bell answered with a note too low for its size. The sea returned one soft line and went back to work. I closed every door and recited inventory like penance. Shutters closed, stove cold, keys where I left them, my name mine. Across the parlor, the portrait I'd faced to the wall rotated a touch, one visible eye.
"No," I told it, like a child. It minded. The frame stayed crooked. A compromise I respect. At 2:07, the beam finally washed the sea like mercy. I breathed like a person who told the truth in time. The register sat open again. Mrs. K, -- 2 nights, lantern provided. The pencil balanced upright in the inkwell hole, point down, held by nothing I could name. I put it in the drawer and shut the drawer, like locking a very small door. My last night looked kind. Moon on loan. A path to the tower bright enough to tempt fools. I did not go up. I walked the rooms like visiting an elder, slow, careful, willing to be taught, even if the lesson is leave. The sea told me what it tells everyone. You are temporary. You belong. Both. 1:14. I stood at the parlor door already. The land beam swept once. I closed the door. I did not watch the second pass. Behind me, a chair slid in the east wing, one polite line, like someone rising to greet a guest they'd already decided to keep. A pop at the stair, a breath at the keyhole,
fogging, then clearing without glass. I stayed where the rule holds. At dawn, I wrote the last entry. House kept. Beam swept land nightly. Doors held. No second watch. Then a line small at the bottom. If light learns your hand, teach it goodbye. I left the index card for whoever comes next. It reads like a joke and isn't. If the beam sweeps land, shut the interior doors. Don't watch the second pass. And if a lamp you didn't light touches your knee like it belongs there, remember, you are the one with thumbs. Use them.
I learned Portland's east side by knees and tires. Bike courier, river to ridge, paperwork that sweats when you look at it. Day is coffee and green lights. Night is rain smear and rail voices. The industrial strip smells like wet steel and old grain. Yards thread themselves low along the river, sidings, dead spurs, concrete rooms with no jobs left. If you cut smart, you save 10 minutes. If you cut dumb, you come away with a story you didn't want. Yard calls roll the curve and land in your ribs like a patient cough. 317/2. Clear to shove. Hold main until defect. I carried a handheld scanner until it died in October and stayed dead. Even without it, you can feel dispatch like weather. The night this happened, rain hung like a sheet someone forgot to pull tight. My manifest? Print shop by the river, loft build on 3rd, a lab door off Water Avenue, then a late drop to an engineer who signs with a firm handshake and eyes that don't believe in sleep. I cut behind the paint warehouse and took the service strip that skims the south end of the yard. The fence there knows the difference between suggestion and law. Pigeons muttered under the bridge in a tone that means we own copper. I pedaled slow. Some nights ask. Under the overpass sits a squat concrete blockhouse, half buried. Grilled door, no windows. Everyone calls it the bunker. It lives beneath a siding that hasn't carried anything since the mill died. I've never seen it open. I've never seen anyone want to. At 21:08, my dead scanner chirped. Not alive, just that proud little beep a battery makes to say it woke up to leave. The cracked screen flickered a segment. Carrier hiss grew out of nowhere like a seashell glued to stone. Yard 32, consist 27, a voice said through my dead thing. Calm, present tense. I rolled without deciding. The real yard clanked 3 blocks north. This voice was here, under the bridge, trying on my air. Railroads don't use your name over open calls unless it's shouting time. They don't know mine. This scanner died before I worked this job. Courier, the dead radio said. Not my name, my role. Courier, hold short, under Water Avenue, copy? I didn't answer a dead radio. That's how you stay a person and not a story. Water puddled where rails used to live. To my right, chain link. To my left, the bunker. The grilled door flexed a whisper. Half an inch out, half an inch back. Practicing the idea of open. I coasted a yard beyond and put a foot down like I meant to. My heart lost count, then overcorrected. Courier, said the dead thing. Then my full name the way forms print it. No one down here knows my full name. People on the yard work in initials and shoulders. My phone and dispatch know me. This scanner shouldn't. I let the bike lean into my thigh like weight could fix logic. Don't, I said to the air, in case words complete circuits. It chirped again, punctuation. Clear to shove, clear to hold.
my voice said. Not similar, mine. I keep a narrow swing when I talk. I heard it. Ballast on the dead siding shifted. No train, no rat. Stones deciding in a line, like weight had already passed and left patience behind. The bunker answered with the kind of settling sound houses make when they survive stories. It sounded like permission. My uncle's railroad rules, age 12. Never stand on a frog. Never swing a gate you didn't set. If a call knows your full name before you've given it, do not answer. I made being late the good choice and pushed off. A real horn rolled the river. The dead radio braided it with its own hiss like it wanted custody. 2 by, my voice continued. Brake test good. Courier clear at platform. Copy? There is no platform here. Just a slab for forklifts to reconsider choices. Not me, I told the slab and the voice I own somewhere else. Not tonight. I delivered to the lab on water, clipped to a pipe every courier knows by smell. The night clerk slid a clipboard through the slot and asked if my scanner still worked. Mostly a memory, I said. Memories talk, he answered, too casual. Rain softened. I headed toward 3rd. Cut back near the yards because contractors who stamp passports don't like waiting.
The dead scanner woke under the same bridge. Courier, it said, patient office hours. Then my full name again, with my grandmother's swallowed L. Hold. I didn't. A horn cried from a block where no rails sleep. The sound learned corner and came back changed. Fog puffed through a low concrete vent in the bunker like someone inside was learning lungs, regular breaths, fogging and clearing without glass. The wall around the vent trembled in a neat rectangle, door-sized behind the door, as if space remembered being track and wanted to wear that memory. Consist 27 by 3, my voice said. A higher voice under it repeated, careful and wrong order, like a child reading. 27 by 3. The death chirp landed late, like a period proud of itself. 2 rules of courier work. You get 1 free good choice most nights. The good choice feels like cowardice you can explain later. I took it and left. 3-day shifts. Sun pretended to like the city. I ran the grid and pretended the river didn't have a file on me. The engineer with the handshakes called, "Rush to the riverfront. After dark, okay?" It used to be a joke. I said fine and meant brave. Rain returned like it remembered how. I rolled the waterfront path with joggers to feel normal. Back of the paint warehouse, my brakes argued. Habit is an animal. Courier, the dead thing said before I reached the bridge. Full name, easy, like we were done with introductions. Clear to enter. Not me, I said. Not yours. The bunker waited. It didn't test. I delivered, signed, left, then did the dumb 90-second save, cut the service strip again. Under the bridge, the radio stayed quiet. The vent spoke. 3 careful taps from the concrete, low, where couplers would kiss if rails lived here. Tap, tap, tap. The grill flexed to my timing, out a half inch, back. We were dancing without consent. Who taught you my name? I asked the block, the metal, the air. It's a stupid question. It's the only one I had. Courier, my voice answered. Then a softer copy, like another me 10 feet down a tunnel, trying not to wake someone. Courier, it whispered. No, I said, in the register trucks here at crosswalks. The vent breathed out once, in, then held. I pedaled away and avoided the yards a week. You can dodge a bridge and still deliver a city. Cities wait. They ask when you're grateful. Another rush from the engineer.
Make it fast." I was fast and dumb. I tried to ghost under the bridge. Ghosts are bad at bikes. "Courier," the dead thing said, then recited a consist I caught without meaning to. 2 reefers, 4 empties, caboose for show. No train like that belongs here. Cabooses are nostalgia merch. "Clear to shove," my voice added. The squelch sounded relieved. A horn answered in the alley behind the feed store. Chainlink learned harmony. I set the bike down because I hate myself when I drop it. Palms on cold bar. The latch moved like a dog's face when it knows it's forgiven in advance. "Don't," I told my hands. The handheld chirped. Carrier rose. "Clear inside," my voice said. The second, higher voice echoed it, proud of the word. "Inside." The concrete rectangle hummed, deep, like track under weight you'll never see. I put my forehead to the grill and learned the smell of below. Wet rust, old cardboard, a summer baked in a winter. Breath. The door didn't open. Air leaned toward me like a platform edge brushing a body that just remembered it exists. I stepped back 1 heel toe and breathed wrong on purpose to break any rhythm it could learn. The handheld repeated my full name. The child voice tried out my middle initial like a toy. "Stop," I said to a child, not a tunnel. They stopped. I left. Delivered. Did not shower. The smell would make it proof. Next morning, the courier cage at the hub stood open. No pry, just open. On my hook, a rectangle of clipboard cardboard. My full name, last name first, the way rail rosters print. Below it, a timestamp I recognized from the dead scanner's pretend log. 2108. Hold. I crushed it, then uncrushed it. Throwing it away felt like answering. That night, I told the bartender a version with pride added and names removed. He said his brother works switches, said there's a room under rooms in a lot of yards, said doors learn thumbs, said he never says his full name south of the river after dark into anything with an echo. He didn't ask me to prove it. I rerouted west side before bed to remind my legs who pays them. People still want shortcuts. 2 nights later, I was near the yards again. The dead thing tried once, softly, "Cur." Under a sodium light that makes hands look guilty, I pulled the battery. It chirped, proud to die in service. Silence laid down heavy. I took the Esplanade long way, pretended the river is just water, found the engineer. He handed me a clipboard sheet. Yard release, blank where a train name should be. My full name printed below in 2 neat letters. "Came up from downstairs," he said. "There is no downstairs," I said. He looked at the wall like the wall mailed it. Later, on a run, I saw chalk arrows near the paint warehouse pointing to the bridge. At their end, a white square around the old drain where washdown used to go. Inside the square, my initials. 3 times. My grandmother's swallowed L. Because I'm a horse that steps into traps out of curiosity, I set my boot in the square.
Cold pressed through rubber into bone, pressure not wet. I lifted my foot and left. Didn't come back for weeks. The yards changed while I hid. Rails disappear like teeth, quiet, mourned by tongues and no one else. A crew lifted a spur north of here. For 2 nights, the city complained of a missing lullaby. On the 3rd, a horn played one long mercy from nowhere behind the paint warehouse. I didn't check. I kept the rule that lets my knees heal. If a call knows your full name before you've given it, do not answer. I put the scanner in a drawer at home. It chirped through wood every few nights. Then it learned silence like a trick it could keep for later. A junior asked me the fastest way from 3rd to water after dark. 20.
lungs like new glass, no patience for elders. I gave him the long way. He smiled like I was sweet and wrong. He probably cut under the bridge. He made his drop. He didn't come back for an hour. When he rolled in, he wore a new quiet and a dust rectangle on his shoulder like a handprint in concrete powder. "Shortcut?" I asked. He nodded. He swallowed the L in his own name when he said it. First time I'd heard that. "What's your rule?" I asked. "You need one sentence that fits a pocket or the city names you." He didn't blink. "If a call knows your name before you've given it, don't answer," he said, like he'd grown up on it. "Where'd you learn it?" He looked at his radio, at the dust, at floor that remembers feet. "From me," he said.
People think cities are made of streets and money and arguments. They are, but the part that works at night is made of doors. Some are steel, some are overhead, some are words. If you ride under the yards after rain and a voice from your dead machine calls you by your full name with your grandmother's mistake stitched into the middle, don't answer. If a concrete door tests your timing with a polite half-inch it learned from your hand, don't teach it the rest. If air leans toward you like a platform edge, breathe wrong on purpose. Step back once. Heel, toe. You'll feel cowardly. You'll live. I still run nights. I still cut stupid sometimes. I still hear my voice from places my mouth isn't. But I keep the rule that fits in a pocket. I let trains sing mercy for someone else's story. And when the bunker hums like track under weight I won't see, I let the city keep its downstairs. We told ourselves it was for the footage. 2 urban explorers with cheap headlamps, 1 rented thermal cam, and a channel that pays only when the thumbnail looks like a dare. The Coast Range holds mills like old teeth. Company towns rot around them. The green chain rusts, the tally boards still no names, and everything smells like wet sawdust and tax write-offs. We parked where the older tries to eat the road, fence cut years ago. Rain fell polite, like it didn't want to be the story. Rules keep you from becoming a local feature. Gloves, masks, don't drink the roof, text someone your PIN, and my favorite, learned from a comment under one of our clips, do not whistle in the green chain. I wrote that one on tape inside my glove because some jokes don't like being jokes for long. The mill had 3 buildings. Planer shack blown open like a rib cage, boiler house with a chimney that pretends to own clouds, main mine shed with the green chain and the tally board, long, dim, windows like tired teeth. We went there first because thumbnails. Inside, the air remembered work, oil, moss, old pine pitch that refuses to pick a century. The chain lay like a dead river, each doghouse frozen mid-argument, each link furred with orange. Above, slatted roof. Below, a trench where sawdust used to gather like drift. "Check this," Leo said, phone light cutting a thin idea of safety. He filmed the tally board, month columns, names in pencil, and then in pen when the foreman got proud of a good week. Under the dust, you could read ghosts of nicknames. Boy Dog, Kip R. Angel. My lamp picked up a ladder to the catwalk. We climbed because angles sell. Up top, you can see the whole line like a sentence. Chutes, kickers, a place where kindness stopped being profitable. Down below, somewhere in the dark, a generator coughed. Not on, not off. Just a single rumble and that weak, hopeful sound machines make when their memories try to help. Leo looked at me like we should pretend we didn't hear it. We're good at pretending the wrong way first. We did passes, stationary shots for later lies.
close-ups of bolts, slow pans along the chain. Rain ticked the slats overhead, patient as an accountant. When I set the thermal camera over the trench, the screen bloomed in a smear as if the floor were the warmest thing in the room. "It shouldn't be warmer," I said. "It's not warmer," Leo said. "It's wrong." Thermal sometimes lies, but it does not invent gravity. A board slid somewhere with a noise like a man who doesn't want to be noticed putting down a mug. We froze. Wind can move wood. Mice can, water can, time can. We stood still long enough to make each excuse run out of script. 3 taps climbed a column. Low, halfway up, high. Tap, tap, tap. Like a foreman letting the day begin. I pinched my glove, found the tape seam, reminded myself of the rule I hadn't earned. Do not whistle in the green chain. We moved to the tally board because paper tells the truth sometime. Leo cleared a corner with his sleeve and filmed. Under "in," someone had written 2 new lines with a very sharp pencil. Leo, 0.0, ME, 0.0. He laughed once, like swallowing a cough. "Funny," he said, which is the word you use to make rooms less true. I erased my name with my thumb and felt the board push back. Not warm, not cold, just interested. We made a plan like professionals. Boiler house next, then out before dark. No bonus content, no stupid stunts. Mill roofs will teach you the difference between a view and a fall. On the way down the catwalk, something bright freckled the air. I thought dust until I saw the specks lift, not fall. Sawdust rising, not much, just a shimmer going up toward the rafters. Like noon had arrived in a room that forgot clocks. I filmed because fear is future-proofed by footage. The phone showed dust falling like sanity. The thermal showed a fountain rising like a ghost with respect for valves. We hit the floor and crossed toward the boiler house. A smell like wet coins welcomed us at the threshold. I pointed the light down. Ash lay in drifts, gray and self-satisfied. Every step wrote a poem I didn't want to read. A far wall wore a map of heat damage, bubbles in paint, lower than a fire wants. Like flame had learned a different rule here and decided to be polite. The generator sat on a little concrete plinth, like a dog pretending to be furniture. "Don't," I told it. It answered by trying to start again. A turnover and a sputter. The belt twitched. A little smoke got nostalgic. Leo said, "No juice in the room." Breakers aren't even pretending. He raised the camera and filmed the panel. Every switch sat where dead lives. "Wind," he offered. "Memories," I said. We agreed not to agree. Back in the main shed, we caught our breath because Pamek writes bad captions. We logged our times the way we do in case someone needs to find bodies instead of footage. In the log on my phone, I wrote 1437 in, 1506 boiler house, 1530 back main. Don't whistle. The last 2 words felt like someone else's handwriting. The catwalk gave a small pop we hadn't earned. Above us, a line of sawdust lifted again, more this time, like a whole rack was exhaling. "Do you hear that pitch?" Leo asked. I didn't. Then I did. A single, thin note sat under everything. Too steady for wind, too thin for metal that big. Like a whistle far off on a day that was too tired to hold it. We both turned toward the green chain. The teeth had not moved, the chain had not moved, but the air at chest height slid now in a slow current toward the rafters. "Don't whistle," I said aloud, because words sometimes put walls back. The note dimmed, not gone, just respectful enough to make me angrier.
We went for prettier shots because we are stupid and love money. Leo framed the tally board. I took the catwalk again for the high pan that always makes comments like, "I feel like I'm there." I do not want you there. I want you to be bored and alive. Halfway up, I saw our names again. Leo 0.3, ME 0.4. The pencil sat trapped in twin nails under the board where nobody's hand should fit. It wiggled like it wanted to write more. "Stop," I told Wood. Wood decided to be generous and obey. At the top, we stood in listening. Rain made maps on the slats. Air moved like a person choosing a chair. I set the thermal down for a long hold. Leo played the light along the rafters. Between us, a scatter of sawdust lifted and drifted upward in a column, as if a fan had been turned upside down. We trained lenses on it and let the math offend us. 3 hours here, you think? He asked. 20 more minutes, I said. The stupid part of us agreed. At 15:52 by my phone, the chain advanced half a dog. Not power strong, memory strong. Enough to click teeth, enough to tell old fingers to expect work. The whole shed answered like a church that remembers sermons. Lights we didn't have flickered in the spaces where power used to be. The whistle under the air changed key. My chest said, "Run." My knees said, "Document."
The tally board chalked without our help. Leo 0.6, ME 0.7. I felt my pocket for the tape seam again, like a rosary. Do not whistle in the green chain. I wanted out. Leo wanted one door shot, the kind where you stand in a rectangle and make a silhouette against the world you might not get back to. He took his place at the far roll-up. The frame made the outside look like a TV. Cedars huddled in rain. A pickup passed on the far road like Patience. "Hold it," I said, pretending to be a director. I panned left to get the chain, the line of teeth, the trench, the tally board. The air began to tug at my jacket from the back. Steady hand, not rude. Upward, a slow lift. The green chain had not moved. The green chain was pulling. "Down," I said to Leo. He didn't hear me. The note under the room ate the word. His jacket flared against his shirt as if invisible fingers had hooked the hem and lifted. He reached for the roll-up slats and missed air because air was a trick now. Dust rose around his knees. It rose around mine. "Get low!" I shouted. He crouched, and the pull eased, as if whatever makes doors in the middle of rooms disliked posture. We belly-crawled toward the side exit, elegant as spilled lumber. The pull softened with each inch lower. By the time I could kiss the floor, I did. I don't know what prayer looks like inside a mill until I saw mine smeared with ash on my face. At the side door, the latch learned my hand's small lift too well. Out a half inch, back, out, back. Practicing the timing, I'd taught it grossly, thoughtlessly, as if metal is only a hinge and not a mirror. I changed the rhythm. I lifted wrong on purpose. The latch unlearned me enough to behave. We slid out into rain that loved us. On the pad outside, I turned to film the open bay because I haven't outgrown proof. Saw dust rose in the door frame like a curtain that forgot which way gravity works.
A thin line of ash drew along the floor inside, from the chain pit to the tally, like a pencil doing attendance. I said Leo's name once. He said mine. The mill said both. At the truck, we sat with the windows fogged, and the kind of breathing you use when you're checking if all your bones remembered to come home. We did the idiot thing and reviewed footage. Thermal showed the chain not moving, and the air moving like ribbon drawn to the rafters. Phone showed dust falling the normal way, because phones like to comfort.
The tallyboard shot was clean until the last second, when the pencil under its nails twitched and the numbers changed. LEO 0.8, ME 0.9. I deleted the last clip and emptied the trash because dignity is a memory device. On the drive out, the radio found a station that doesn't exist and gave us a song the mill might hum when it misses men. A single held note, then silence, then a tap, tap, tap. We didn't whistle. We didn't say the word whistle. We didn't breathe through our teeth because that is also teaching. 2 nights later, Leo texted a screenshot of our channel page. Someone had made a fake upload from our account titled Green Live. It was just a thumbnail of the chain pit, dark, with chat spamming, "Whistle, please." We changed passwords. We changed locks. The thumbnail kept coming back for an hour, like the mill was willing to teach us customer service. We pulled the plug and put up a photo of a dog instead. The world forgave us because dogs make better rooms. A week after, a comment appeared under an old clip we shot in a school gym. "Whistle in the green chain or you're cowards." The profile was new. The location said Ash. No avatar, no history. I typed a reply and erased it, and typed it again and erased that too. Cowardice is a room that stays warm. Sometimes at night, my coat lifts just enough to remind me that rooms take notes.
In the grocery, in a line, at a red light, a hem will rise like a friend trying to be funny and then be ashamed for you. When that happens, I crouch in public like a fool and tie a shoe I didn't untie. I don't look up. What I learned the day we almost let the mill make a door out of our ribs. Work leaves a groove that doesn't close. Air will learn a task if paid enough attention. Latches memorize. Change your rhythm. And do not whistle in the green chain. If you go, because you will, because youth is a dare and fear makes thumbnails, take 2 lights. Wear a mask. Don't step on what will remember you. Don't let paper write your name without your hand. If the dust lifts, get low. If the chain pulls without moving, crawl. And if a thin note finds your teeth and asks you to make it whole, keep your mouth shut. Not because of superstition, because rooms learn fast, because work wants you back, because some songs only need a second voice to become a machine. We didn't give it ours. We left with our numbers small. We intend to keep them. Out in the Oregon outback, the horizon is an honest lie. Flat as a table you could seat 100 miles at. Sky so big your thoughts feel like crumbs. I was a wildlife tech on a winter contract. Night acoustic survey, daytime scat grids. The glamorous parts science forgets to put on posters. Base camp near Fort Rock, spurs into Christmas Valley. A dry lake bed for calibration because flat gives you clean data. 1 tent, 1 truck. 1 habit I don't recommend. Walking out to the center when the wind stops, just to hear your own blood. Wind likes to tell you when you're small. Silence tells you why. The playa felt solid that week, a hard crust under dust. My boots learned its song in a day. Crunch, hiss, set. I ran lines at dawn, dropped flags, set recorders. At night, I labeled files by headlamp and tried not to enjoy being alone. Locals give you rules the way old men hand down pocket knives. Don't drive on wet playa. Don't trust distance when air shimmers. Don't turn your back to a dust devil, even a small one. and one from a rancher who had no reason to lie. Don't stand at the center of a dry lake when the wind quits. He said it like I already knew. I nodded like I did. Day 3, noon. My GPS chirped low battery, and the world clapped its hands once. Not thunder, not sonic, just a quick, wide pressure that made the skin on my arms feel too organized. Air went still like a held breath. The playa looked the same and somehow more itself. I stood at the center pin I'd dropped that morning, shaded my eyes, and remembered the rule. Too late to pretend it was mine. I walked back toward the truck because pretending obedience counts for something. Halfway, the pause ended. Wind returned gently. I filed it as a thing not to think about. Nights carry farther on a flat. At 1:10, a coyote yipped near the rim, clean as glass. At 1:12, a train horn I knew was a highway tire squeal pretended to be civilization. Around 2 o'clock, my own voice came back to me from the lake bed. Quiet and neat and wrong. Copy, it said, in my cadence. Not quite loud enough to call a neighbor, not quite quiet enough to be a thought. I was alone. I hadn't keyed a mic in hours. My recorder blinked red and told me it was fine. I zipped the tent, faced my stupid reflection in the headlamp glare, and didn't write that in the log. The outback hides mouths. Lava tubes stitched under the sage like someone who didn't care about OSHA made tunnels with a hot needle. On day 5, I checked a tube marked by an old T-post and a pile of beer cans, the universal sign for hole we regret. I anchored a safety line to the truck frame because rules make widows angry slower. I dropped into cool air that smelled like rock, thinking about water. The tube ran 20 yards, then pinched. Basalt had teeth. The ceiling glittered with the breath of other fools. At the pinch, a shadow puddled. Not normal darkness, deeper, round, precise. Imagine a coin pressed into the floor when clay was soft, and then the world baked around it. My headlamp slid over it and learned nothing. No texture, no edge, just a smooth wrong that refused my light. I said no to that particular curiosity and backed out without showing my spine. Outside, the lake looked too clean. Crows battered the sky with a complaint they didn't sign. Wind slacked and stood still, like a dog that knows it will get called back. I did not stand at center. I watched it from 200 yards. The flat did what flats do, fucked with distance and the part of your brain that believes in countable. Night 6, the recorder files came back with a laugh I don't own. Not hyena, not fox. Hollow and missing a rib. It played as I labeled. The file name stamped itself with a double ellipsis because my finger stuttered. I told myself it was mine with a head cold. I don't get head colds in winter. At 11:53 a.m. the next day, the wind stopped mid-sentence. Not slowed. Stopped. My head tried to catalog reasons. Katabatic quirk, thermal nonsense, weather doing improv. A shadow pool formed at the lake center. I was not at center. I had promised a rancher with a face like a fence post I would stop being dumb. The pool stayed a circle the size of a truck tire, sharp edge. Nothing from above cast it. Nothing moved inside it. It sat exactly where my pin had been. I wanted to go out there and put my hand over it, like checking a burner with a bad childhood. I did not. Wind returned like a stage cue, gentle and late. The pool smeared and stopped existing. I wrote, noon anomaly. Shadow pool.
didn't investigate. It felt like telling on someone else.
The next night, the flat practiced talking like me again. "Copy," it said, near the rim. Then, "Mark," from halfway to the truck. Then, "Set," right by the tent door. My own little work words. The truck latch sighed a polite half-inch forward, half back, practicing. I told Metal number. Metal understood and pretended not to remember. Day 8, we had cloud, high, thin parchment sky that lets light in meaner. The tubes breathed cool in a way that wanted conversation. I went back to the hole with the coin shadow because some parts of me still audition for dumb. The puddle was larger by 2 boot lengths, same clean edge, same refusal of light. My headlamp beam showed a halo around it and then surrendered. I threw a bolt at it because men are great at experiments that don't hurt bolts. The bolt hit center without sound and did not bounce. Not stuck, not gone, just done. I walked backward out of that tube with knees I was surprised to own. At camp, I ate peanut butter with a spoon, like a person who won't bother pretending to cook for himself in front of no one. Wind idled. Sage kept its little secrets. The lake played blank. At exactly noon, the wind quit again. The lake center took a breath inward I could feel at my eardrums. Shadow pooled, larger, the size of an office desk now, edges crisp, air cooler on my teeth like someone had opened a door behind a refrigerator. I stood at the truck bed and said my rule out loud so the flat could hear what I was promising. Never stand at the center when the wind stops. Someone said it with me from the lake in my exact voice, a half-beat late, learning the punctuation. My chest decided I was done with science for the day. By sunset, I had a plan a child could be proud of. I moved camp up against the low basalt bank. I anchored a line from my belt to the truck and left just enough slack to get embarrassed, not enough to win Darwin Awards. I slept with my boots on, and no story for anyone. Wind hissed polite all night. At 2:07, the recorder clicked without my hand. A file name entered itself. Center_test_1. I do not name files in screaming caps because I am not an intern. The recorder lighted green, as if expecting applause. I shut it off. It stayed on. I took the battery out. It thanked me by staying on. I put it in the cooler with the ice and shut the lid, because plastic is a door if you need one. Morning put sugar on the rim and called it frost. I walked the flags, checked prints, measured scat like a penance for believing in words. A line of small, neat steps paralleled mine for 50 yards, then simply weren't anymore. No turn, no sink. Not deer, not time. Just steps that learned enough and then graduated. At noon, the wind quit mid-breath. I stood uphill. The center coupled shadow late, like it had been caught daydreaming and wanted to make up for it by being exact. I didn't go. It grew to the size of my tent. My name moved through the air from the center but skipped a syllable, like a kid reading their own name aloud for the first time. My recorder in the cooler chirped. I let the door be a door. An hour later, a dust devil toddled across the flat and fell apart at the edge of the pool, as if it had been scolded. I put a hand to my sternum and found my pulse cheaper than I like. I texted the ranger my coordinates and all good. He sent a thumbs up and wind picks up late today. Men send weather instead of help and call it culture. Night 9. The center practiced daylight in the wrong place. At 1:10, a bright patch bloomed where the noon pool lives. Not headlamp, not moon hump. A polite rectangle of cool that pushed instead of shone. It pressed into me from the inside of my breath, like inhaling had edges that knew corners. I sat down because my knees did. The rectangle withdrew, like a dog who had confused a command and wanted to apologize by repeating it later. I packed. Slow, stupid, quiet. The outback makes leaving feel like naming a child you won't meet. I took the flags, the pins, the recorder with the battery still in the cooler because doors work until they don't. I left the center its habit. At the truck, my boot slipped on something that wasn't there and was. Not mud, not ice. A slick like the beginning of a word. I closed the tailgate and meant it. Wind picked up. Sky decided on evening like a compromise. I started the engine and the check engine light came on, for reasons that crave a dealership you can't afford. I drove anyway. At the highway I stopped, because stopping is the most powerful verb in the desert if you choose it on purpose. I checked my mirrors because that's what you do before you lie to yourself. The lake looked like what it always is. A place that will be water when it feels like it, and likes pretending until then. At center, a dark coin showed and hid with clouds, then held. Clean, round, waiting. My phone buzzed with a forgotten message from 3 days ago. A rancher's voicemail. "Son, wind's been hard. Stand off the middle when it quits." It's not superstition. The ground remembers when it belonged to sky. I did not play it twice. 2 months later, in a grocery 20 miles away, linoleum, sneeze guards, real life, the automatic door breathed my name, half-syllable late, same child-reading cadence. The cool from the produce case stepped into my chest and pressed once, polite, like a door testing its hinge. I stood aside and let a woman with a pie pass because manners are the only magic I own. It let me go. Now when I map flats, I check wind more than battery. I let noon be noon without contests. I log center observed from the rim and pretend I used to do it that way. I leave the tubes to braver liars. If a recorder writes its own file in caps, I unplug it and put it in a cooler and set a can of beans on top. So the world understands. We're all learning doors. What I learned out there is not science, but it fits in a pocket. Flats keep minutes like ledgers. Shadows can be tools and rooms. Air will push if taught. And never stand at the center of a dry lake when the wind stops. If you go, because people do, because pretty is a filter that forgives, take a friend you can hear in silence. Tie a line if you must pretend. Stand uphill of your better stories. When the wind quits, be humble and be elsewhere. If a rectangle of cool steps into your breathing like it belongs, sit down and breathe wrong on purpose until the room forgets your name. And if the ground says your name back with one syllable missing, do not teach it the rest. Leave the center for the sky. It visits. It remembers. It'll make a door if you help. Don't help.
If the room around you feels 1 inch wider than it used to, it isn't the paint. It's the space your name made when the place learned it. Tonight, we walked 5 Oregon thresholds. Prints that climbed uphill to wear your boots. A lighthouse beam that swept the trees instead of the sea. Yard calls from a downstairs the city doesn't admit. A mill that pulled air like lumber. And a desert that made a door out of noon. Different places, same lesson. Don't step where the water steps first. Don't watch the second pass. Don't answer a call that knows your name. Don't whistle in the green chain. Don't stand at the center when the wind stops. If your window fogs in 3 ovals, if a latch learns your half-inch, if a dead radio remembers you. Breathe wrong on purpose. Step back. Starve the knock. Now tell me what followed you down the hallway. Which rule you're going to write on a card and keep in your pocket. Drop it in the comments. Share this with the friend who swears pretty places are harmless. Subscribe to Horror Nexus so you don't have to open the door to hear the next one. Locks are homework. Rooms take notes. And anything that says your please perfectly wasn't asking. It was arriving.